What's up, everybody? What's up? How y'all doing? It's good to see you all once again. Thank you all for tuning in once again in partnership with WYTV7. This is Christian Broadcasters Network, and this is When Men Open Up, where we are redefining manhood through transparency. My name is Dominique Bond.
And I am Dexter Perkins Jr.
And once again, we are back, and we have a great series.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about something very heavy. And this is something that a lot of men are really dealing with, that's really holding us back in different ways. And we're going to be talking about unforgiveness. We're going to be talking about control issues. We're going to be talking about commitment issues. That's the series that we're going to be on.
We're going to take that down. Yeah.
Exactly. And we really appreciate everyone for tuning in. Those of you that are watching right now and tuning in, please share the broadcast. Invite people to tune in and continue to share questions, any questions or feedback you have. Please just comment and join in. But unforgiveness is a conversation that I think a lot of men need to have, because I think there's a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions with forgiveness and what it means and the importance of it, and is it for us? Is it for other people? You know, there's so many different ideas, so many different definitions that people give. You know, and I think that's what causes the misunderstandings. So I think let's make sure everyone is on the same page.
Yeah.
And let's get into what does forgiveness means, and let's get into why it's important and so forth.
Well, I think one of the most common misconception is, the forgiveness doesn't mean, do we forget?
Right.
And the actuality is no. We're not asking you to forget. But the act of forgiveness is really to release the person from the offense.
Right.
Whatever they did to cause the hurt, what you're essentially saying is that I'm not going to hold you prisoner to that anymore. Mm-hmm. And by not holding you prisoner to that anymore, I myself am free because I'm not committing energy to locking you up to that offense that you caused to me.
Right. I think another thing is whether forgiveness is for us or for the other person.
That's good.
And really the forgiveness is not just for the person, but it's really for you.
Yeah.
It's to really help you kind of get over that burden or that pain. And it doesn't necessarily mean when you forgive that person that the pain automatically goes away.
True.
But it is maybe the first step with getting over that pain and really moving on, so it won't be so much of a bondage, which we're going to go more into. But we was talking about the pain. You brought up anger. Let's get into more about the anger, the disappointment, the pain. Let's get more into that.
Oh, definitely. So let's be realistic. We live in an imperfect world. You're bound to get hurt at some point in time. Not only are you bound to get hurt, but you live a little bit, somebody's going to make you angry, somebody's going to frustrate you, somebody's going to disappoint you. Somebody may even, for lack of a better word, sabotage you or,
right.
Really just leave you hanging, and you never saw it coming from that person. And oftentimes what we have a tendency of doing is when we find ourselves angry with that person, that becomes a type of fuel or drive is concerning our subsequent actions.
Right.
And so what we end up doing is that offense now motivates us to do something as a means of getting back to that person. Now, it might not necessarily be physical, but we make this agreement in ourselves to say, you know what, they hurt me, and guess what? I'm going to prove them wrong. Or, because they did this to me, I got to get back at them.
Yeah.
And the danger of allowing anger to be your drive is that once you satisfy whatever that is, whatever thing you called yourself getting back at, once you satisfy that, now you're depending upon anger to essentially be your motivating force for everything else you do. Mm-hmm. We're familiar with stories about maybe absentee fathers, and we say, you know what? My father hurt me, and because of that, I'm gonna get back at him by being a better man, or I'm gonna excel in business or sports or whatever. But what happens when you get to that place where you reach success? It's almost like you become so dependent upon the emotion of anger that now you need anger to succeed in other facets of life. And so the danger of using anger as your fuel is that if you're not open, that will be the only thing that you hold on to. That will become very sacred to you almost. You know, the anger will now be a part of your psyche, a part of your norm. And you want to avoid that situation. You don't want to be labeled as the person who needs to be angry all the time to get results.
Yeah, and like we keep on saying, we always use that P word. It's a process.
Yeah.
And we really want people to understand that forgiveness is part of that process. It's so good that you brought that up, because I remember speaking at an event, and I always ask the audience, you know, what's fueling your drive?
Yeah.
You know, what's really motivating you? And, you know, I'm a firm believer that all motivation is not good motivation.
Sure.
Because it's all motivation is going to steer you in some direction.
Yeah.
With that being said, every direction is not the right direction. So we really have to take time out to really understand what's really driving us to make a certain decision.
Yeah.
And if it's fueled from a negative place, then you have to understand that, you know, is that really driving you in the right place or the wrong place?
Exactly.
And that's something that we have to really consider. I want to stick to the point that what you was on. And the thing is, you know, the word of God says the root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble.
Yeah.
I want to get more into that, because one of the habits that we have when we just are very disappointed in somebody, we're angry at someone, we're sad. One of the first things that we'll start doing is we'll allow all these negative thoughts to just swirl in our head over and over and over again. And one thing and it's towards that person. We have to be very, very careful of those thoughts, because it always can lead to one thing. It can be an influence, because now when I'm around that person, because I have allowed those thoughts to stay in my mind for so long, I can't even have peace around that person. You know, if that person says something to me, I may just go out and just lash out on that person because I've already allowed these thoughts just to, you know, float around in my mind. Another thing is we will probably wish ill on somebody, which is not good either. You know what I'm saying? So because someone made you upset, someone made you angry, we'll wish that this will happen to the person. We'll hope that this person doesn't get this. We'll hope that this person gets this. And that's not in a good place. But we have to monitor all these things, because one thing always leads to another. And we don't want to have any conflict with someone, because we have allowed all these things to really swirl around our minds. You know, we have to be mindful of what we are allowing to really distract us, because we will really lose out on a lot of things.
And I want to share this. You know, the word also says, you know, be angry and sin not. And so we're not sitting here and saying that being angry is not a human emotion. It's very real, and it's okay to own it. The danger lies, what do you do with the anger? You know, what does anger become after you've identified that you're frustrated? It can become rage, or it can become an opportunity where you're able to effectively communicate what you're feeling, and now this anger now becomes, you know, a learning opportunity between you and the person who maybe offended you. You know, one of the things I know about anger, and on the negative side of the spectrum, when you're mad at somebody, what ends up happening is you find yourself becoming resentful towards the person. Because we're not always the best communicators, the person that we're resentful towards doesn't even know that we have an issue with them.
Right.
And so we're secretly hoping that what we're doing is bothering them, but they don't even know that there's an issue.
Right.
And so, you know, so we're still failing to make whatever point we thought we were, you know, out to make when we were, you know, setting that course. And so what this really boils down to is, I think that when we're angry, this is a real opportunity to work on our communication skills, to really identify what about whatever the situation was made you angry. And then in identifying the source of anger, hopefully that serves as the opportunity to learn and better yourself from that point. Right. But you never want to find yourself angry and then allowing it to fester. And I think oftentimes what we end up doing is, because we don't know how to communicate in the moment or moments later, we allow it to become dormant in us. So we don't say anything about the issue that frustrated us, and then we allow it to compound because another issue will happen, and then we end up having an outburst that really probably had nothing to do with that specific moment. It has something to do with something that happened days or weeks before. But I've gotten to the point where I'm so angry that now I'm doing something about it, and we're missing the moments to really to mitigate the injury, the hurt, and possibly salvage relationships.
Right. And like you said, we have to, when you're angry, we have to really identify, okay, where does that anger really stem from? You know, Valerie just said, you know, a lot of times it stems from fear. Sometimes it is stem from fear. Sometimes it stems from frustration. I know with some of us, we'll get very angry just because we don't have the answer to something. Yeah. We just confused, and we just want to be that person who always have the answer. We just don't have it. So when you are angry, you're going to have to take that time out to, like we said, to reflect, identify specifically what it is and what do I need to do? Why am I frustrated? I probably need to take time out to understand, you know, what the situation is. I probably need to go to the person and ask a simple question, because a lot of time when we have conflict, it is due to misunderstandings. It is due to, you know, where we miscommunicated something. And we just have to take that initiative and really have that communication.
I'm sorry. I wanted, because I know we're getting ready to go somewhere. We're talking today once again when my hurt won't let me win. And I know when we were talking about this particular subject, I don't know why, but my mind went back to when I was in high school and played football. And maybe even middle school. And I remember my coaches saying, well, I need you to play angry. And in that moment when they would tell me to play angry, I would have to kind of summon or channel a hurtful experience in order to get the result in that moment to play angry. And the truth of the matter is that you don't want to carry that type of hurt with you all of the time anyway, which goes back to the point I was making, that sometimes people use hurt as motivation. They use anger as motivation. That could be very dangerous, because maybe in the moment you can get something out of it. You can get a good result. But the fact of the matter is that hurt is still with you, and you're carrying it with you, and you're not addressing it. Yeah. And so I wanted to put that out there, you know, as we progress in this particular subject.
Most definitely. And once again, when my hurt won't let me win, another reason why it won't let you win, because we are basically dwelling on that pain and everything else. So that anger, that frustration, whatever case may be, like we said, it's not necessarily bad, but sometimes it's not necessarily good as well. Yeah. Because there's a certain level of anger or frustration or sadness that we have. This really exposes us, because it makes us more vulnerable to distractions. Think about it. When we're more positive, we tend to highlight, or we tend to notice more opportunities around us. Our communication is better. We just tend to just walk a whole lot better. We think better, and we just process things a whole lot better. When we're frustrated, man, it's just the little things that just irritate us. We don't want to really talk to anybody. You know, we don't really feel like going out. We just don't look at things in a positive light. So what happens is we're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. Exactly. It may be to relationships. Yeah. It may be just to communicate. It may be in a new job. You know, you can just be talking to someone and somebody can give you all the clues in the world, but you're missing it because your mind is not in the right place. So that anger, that level of anger, that level of frustration, it can really expose you to distractions, and it can really blind you of the positive things that are actually around you.
Yeah, and I mean, that's awesome. I mean, and I love, you know, what we're talking about, because the old saying says, hurt people hurt people. And so when we're talking about when my hurt won't let me win, essentially when you're hurt, you're kind of spewing that on other people,
Exactly.
because you haven't been healed in that area. And so what ends up happening is when people get close to that area, you do something to kind of repel them away because you don't want them to hurt you like maybe someone else hurt you in that area. And so, like you were saying, the danger is that we can miss out on good relationships because we won't allow ourselves to be vulnerable in those places anymore because we haven't recovered from the previous hurt.
And on top of that, this is my last point. It causes us to put negative expectations on people,
Exactly.
or this have a negative view on people because once again we have that pain, and since there's so many people in our lives that we haven't forgave, there's so many people that has hurt us. Now we're putting that on other people. As soon as we can't even date because it's, what, this person might do the same thing, or I'm gonna put this boundary up because I already experienced this 2 times. I'm not gonna do this again, and really it's not necessarily fair. So the thing is, I think we're gonna have to trust people on a certain level to understand how much we should trust them, or should we trust them at all. And that's just the chance that we have to do. But there's a difference between me trusting you with $10 versus $1,000.
Exactly.
So we just have to understand that everything is a process. But when we don't forgive people, we just hold on to that, and now we're putting that label on everybody that caused pain, everybody that hurt us, everybody that stabbed us in the back. This person might do this person's gonna do this to me, and now we're putting barriers in front of everyone, and we were not letting anyone in, and now we can't develop any positive relationships.
Exactly. And I'll echo what Nancy and Valerie shared, and that is, fear is the roots of hurt. And so, let's be honest. Let's if fear is the root of hurt, and we've talked about this before, if God does not give us the spirit of fear, then where do we get it from? Where do we pick up this spirit from? Like you said earlier, in the discussion, when we forgive somebody, forgiveness is indeed for us. It's not so much for the person. We hope that they accept it, but even if they don't, what I'm saying when I forgive you is that I'm not going to commit this energy to holding you accountable to something that you did that offended me. I'm at a point in my life that I'm ready to let it go because I understand that it's costing me something. And so when we when we're unwilling to forgive, like we've mentioned before, there is a real cost associated with it. There's energy, there's emotional energy that you're expending on trying to hold somebody accountable for something that they probably don't even care about, truthfully.
Exactly.
And so when we're talking about forgiveness, that's one of the best things that you can do for yourself so that you can get over the offense in that area and move on. We're not saying forget because, once again, hey, look, if the person hurt you, that was a real experience.
Right.
But for you to still hold somebody accountable for something maybe 30, 40, I've seen it 30, 40 years later, that's too much energy. That's too much life that you've allowed to go by trying to hold somebody, make them guilty or hold them accountable for something that, they probably is already out of their memory.
Right. And once again, I always want to leave people with something to kind of, take into action.
Yeah.
I really want people to really write down these questions and really just ask yourself this, the first thing is, I really want people just to list down, a few people that you can probably think of with just during this whole conversation that probably have created some type of pain in your life or made you very angry, stabbed you in the back, whatever the case may be. Really just list down those people. And the next thing I want you to do is ask yourself, what boundaries do I need to set and enforce to eliminate this from happening again? It doesn't necessarily mean it won't happen again, but there are some boundaries that we can set, number one. But number two, most of all, what boundaries do I need to enforce to protect myself from this pain, this frustration, this anger. Another thing is I want people to ask themselves what influences me to not enforce these boundaries. So sometimes we don't want to say no because we don't want that person looking at us different. Sometimes we don't want to say no because we don't want to come off the wrong way, whatever the case may be. But really identify these things, because I think it's very important to learn more about yourself in these certain situations, so you can be better prepared that if you're in these similar situations, these are some things that may influence me one way or another.
Yeah. And I'll share this in closing. A very wise person that I know shared this, and I believe this in the depth of my being. When you forgive somebody, and when you finally get receive your healing in an area of emotional hurt, you're going to have to find a new norm after that hurt, because you have been programmed to act and respond a certain way as it relates to the offense. If you've let the offense go, you're going to have to discover a new system, a new way of motivating yourself in your life. And that's what I talked about earlier when I said that the hurt becomes a sacred thing. We become so connected to the hurt because that's the only emotion that we resonate with.
Exactly.
You have to find something else that's going to motivate you as you progress through life.
Most definitely. We really appreciate everyone for tuning in and joining us. If you enjoyed this broadcast, please share it. Please invite people to the broadcast and tell people that this is something that they must listen to. And once again, September 29th, we will have our first When Men Open Up local event. This will be a live event that for people to attend, for the men to attend and have the same conversations, but these conversations will be face to face. So we're really looking forward to the fellowship. We're really looking forward to the conversations, and we're really looking forward to growth most of all. So September 29th, make sure you mark your calendars. If you are interested in more information, all you have to do is just inbox us your email address so we can email you more information. And once again, another idea that we have, or something that we're going to give business owners an opportunity, is ads. So you want to promote your services or products on our show, all you got to do is email us at whenmenopenup@gmail.com, whenmenopenup@gmail.com, or you can inbox us for more information, and we'll see what's best for the both of us. So once again, this is When Men Open Up, where we are redefining manhood through transparency. My name is Dominique Bond.
And I'm Dexter Jr.
And we are out. Thanks for joining us.